It did. It asked me for permission.
Did it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Welcome to Heal the World Show podcast. I'm Camelia Parham. I am the founder and CEO of the Healing Institute, and this podcast is being brought to you by the Healing Institute. So we're doing something a bit different today. We are doing it on Zoom, and if there could be a few glitches, but that's all right. It's all part of us learning. So I want to just let you know that we, as the Healing Institute, we are bringing hope to the world. We have a big job. We're out to heal the world, and we are using all of the practitioners we have on the website who get to the root cause of what's going on. So whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever issue you might have, our practitioners are going to find out why that's happening. We're not just dealing with symptoms. So we are wanting to make sure that we have this information out to you and out to people in the world so that they know we are here for offering our holistic healing. And I designed the Healing Institute because I'm really passionate about creating a proactive wellness society. I don't know about you, but I think we've had a reactive illness society for way too long. So we need to change that paradigm. We now need to have a proactive wellness society. I've been studying holistic healing myself and using it for well over 20 years, so I know that it works. And why is this important to me? Well, we had a tragedy in our family a few years ago where my mom passed away at a very young age. She was only 61, and it was due to complications because she'd been on a medication for a very long time. And so it happened very fast, very quick. It was right before Christmas. I was 5 months pregnant with my son. And we didn't understand that it was due to this being on this medication for a long period of time that compromised her kidneys. So unfortunately, not only was it a tragedy that she died so young, but also my children didn't get to meet their grandmother. And I don't want that happening for any other families. So on the Heal the World Show podcast every week, I invite a guest co-host to come and talk about healing, talk about their modality, the work that they do. And today I am just so excited to have Jared the medium with us today. And we're going to talk about mediumship and how you can use that on an everyday basis. So Jared, welcome. So glad to have you here. So over a decade of experience, you said teaching and sharing a simple, straightforward, and honest form of mediumship. Tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. And I just want to say the one thing that really stood out to me that you said is we don't just treat symptoms. And man, did I feel that. I love that. And I get a lot of that from spirit. So just thank you for sharing that message. It's so important that people understand that, symptoms aren't the same thing as the problem. And we forget that in this society. So thank you for that very, very much. I needed to hear that. And yeah, so I've been professionally doing this as a medium for over 10 years, almost 14 now, so about 13 years professionally, but I've been using this my whole life, and I teach people this, and I teach people that we all have this ability. So spirit has worked with me, right? And worked with others. And what they told me was, look, you need to share this you need to explain to people that this is not some magic gift that only a few people have, right? It's not some magic gift that some people have. It's something we all use, right? It's something everybody has. Now, was I set out to do this? Probably that was my path. Do I practice it all the time and get better at it? Yes. But that doesn't mean that you can't do what I do. That doesn't mean that you don't do what I do. Everybody uses this all the time. And I don't care what you call it. If you call it intuition, if you call it God, if you call it prayer, if you call it spirit, or just talking to your past loved ones, whatever it is, we're all doing it. We're all getting messages from spirit helping us all the time. They're always helping us. And how you get that information and if you listen to it, now that's what changes, right? That's what's different. And I got to a point where I had to throw that out because instead of trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, who's right, who's wrong, I had to throw all that out and say, it doesn't really matter. I don't care how you get your information. I don't care how I get the information. The question is, are you using the help? Right? Are you using the help?
Yeah. And are you open to receiving that information? Because a lot of people don't know. When I first started studying holistic medicine and ways of being the way we now have it set up for people to have a path on their health journey, I didn't have the language for it. I knew that I was intuitive, but I didn't have that word. I knew that I saw things. I knew that I felt things. Growing up, I was always getting in trouble because I was way too sensitive. I say, what you got in trouble for as a child is probably your gift. So getting, into trouble for asking too many questions and being too sensitive. Now, of course, that works very well with the work that I do. But I don't think we often have the language for it, or we have that feeling or the knowing without being able to put it into words. Do you find that with some of your clients that they're not quite, they've always known? I mean, I've always known my whole life that I was here for a reason. It wasn't until I studied with my energy teacher for 8 years, over 20 years ago now, that she gave me the language for it. And then it made sense.
Yeah, and I find more that it's not that people don't have the language, they just have different language, right? So everybody calls it something different. And this is where I talk about this because, like, if you're a parent, you know what this is, right? Because you have mother's intuition. You have intuition, when there's something going on with your kid. Like that's when it happens. That's everybody who's a parent. Like, I don't have to convince you of this. You know it. Like, there's something going on because you have a connection, right? So call that mother's intuition. It doesn't change it if you call it that. It's still the same thing, right? You're still getting help. Someone's letting you know something's going on, right? Whether you believe that or not, that's where it gets a little cloudy, right? Like,
Yeah.
what you believe and what you were taught can go against, what the information is. And that's where people get hung up, right? People who come to me can have issues with religion, what they were taught. They can have issues with, believing in, a lot of religion issues, right? A lot of people think that what I do is evil or that it's not right. But that's okay. I can work around that. That's fine. What do you believe? Okay, so you believe that you're getting help from this person. Okay, fine. Then listen to what they're telling you and use it. I don't care. I don't care how you get it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I won't get stuck and caught up on that. The truth is we all get the information and we all can use it in our everyday lives. So it's more of getting hung up on how they describe it and comparing it to what I do or comparing it to what you do that messes with people. I don't think very few people don't believe in it. Very few people don't believe. That's not the case. Like, especially the ones who are scared of it, they wouldn't be scared of it if they didn't believe it, right? So
Right.
nobody really doesn't believe in this. They all believe it in some form or another. So if I can get around the stigma and the dogma and all that stuff and again not get hung up on that, then I can help a lot more people with this. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it's that pathway that people need to actually understand what's going on. Because if they don't understand what's happening, or why they're thinking a certain thing, or certain things are showing up for them, the work that you do really helps them understand that and correlate it to their life. And that's what I love about this topic, is actually using what you're referring to as mediumship in our life, like that, whether we call it intuition or whether we call it spirit or whatever we're calling it, that needs to be part of who we are and part of our life. We can't separate it. It's not separate. It's all part of us, right?
Yeah, and it all depends on, like, so my story has addiction in it, right? So I struggled with addiction for many years, as a lot of empaths do. A lot of empaths at a young age, they find if they can numb those feelings, and like you said, I was getting in trouble for being too emotional. I'm a boy who was around a bunch of other boys who was crying over a baby, right? Like, so that doesn't go well in society, right? So if I find that I can numb those things, and then I could kind of get around and I'd be okay. So a lot of that happens a lot with empaths. So I have that in my story, right? So So for me, I noticed this pattern of whenever I would numb myself or whatever, then I wouldn't have these abilities. I wouldn't be able to
Mm-hmm.
communicate, and things would be kind of rough for me. And the minute I would get sober or work on myself, then all these abilities would flood back. So I have this like storyline that goes up and down like that, where and what that taught me was, like if I'm sober and I'm looking at my own self, like all this stuff from spirit comes in and I get all this help and I get all this, everything kind of goes smoothly in my life. Like they tell me what to do, I do it and it feels good, right? It feels good. So I
Mm-hmm.
had this whole up and down, what taught me, like, again, the show that I put out is called Medium Sized Ego, because it's all about keeping that ego
Yeah.
right in the middle, right? Not too low, not defeated, and not too high, not taking credit for all of it, but right in the middle where spirit can work with me, right? They'll work with me as long as I keep that under control. So that's really kind of what's important, is to show people like, look, if you can keep your ego in the middle, you keep yourself spiritually fit, right?
Yeah.
Then the information flows from spirit and you get it and you use it and things go smoothly. And one of the ways that I train this is like, look, how do you know if spirit's working in your life? How do you know if it's spirit's idea or yours, right? How do I know? Let's say I get a message and it's like, let's say it's for me, okay? Because it's really hard for me to get messages for myself, okay? Because what I always say before every reading is, my job is a medium. I'm a middleman, right? My job is to take what I get from spirit and pass it on to you without mixing it with my own thoughts, my own ideas, or letting my own ego get in the way. So that's what I say before every reading, and it's to remind me, right? And it's to open this up. But the idea is to try to get something for myself. How do I not mix that with my own thoughts and my
Mm.
own ideas before I receive it? Like, how do you get a message from spirit without mixing it with your own wants, your own needs, your own fears? Because when I say ego, I really mean fear. That's
Yeah.
how ego gets me, right? Is fear. So how do you
Always.
do that? How can I get a message for myself without mixing it with that? It's really, really difficult. It's not as easy as it is for me to work with a complete stranger. A complete stranger I know nothing about. I don't mix those things up. So the question is like, how do you do that? How do you get that message and use it in your everyday life without mixing it with your own wants and your own needs? And that comes in handy. Or the reason that I can do that is because I kind of know my own ego. I know
Yeah.
myself. I'm keeping that ego at the right point, right? Because if my ego's too high, I'm going to screw that up. And if my ego's too low, I'm going to think less of myself and I'm not going to be able to get that information. So the way I teach it is you can know when it's spirit led because it's easy. Like, you
It
ever
is.
try to buy a house or something and you're like, every corner it's wrong, 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 but you're like trying to make it happen, or whatever the situation, house, whatever, you're trying and trying to make it, and every turn is wrong. Take a moment, back up, say, why is everything wrong? You understand? Because when I'm listening to spirit or they're helping me, it's easy. The
Yes.
loan goes through, the house is there, everything happens. It's like boom, boom, boom. So I tell people, if you want to know if it's spirit led, look at how easy it is. Like, that's an easy method.
Yes, which is really contradictory to what we're raised about, is that you have to work hard to get what you want. And it is so true. When I let God and let go, and things just flow and come to me, then it is easy. And now the work that I've done and the studying that I've done, I know it's supposed to be easy. And just like you said, that's a perfect example of when spirit is leading, is because it's not hard. It's just everything's flowing the way it's supposed to flow. And I've experienced that on many different levels. Manifesting jobs, manifesting houses, manifesting husbands. And when I wasn't when I didn't have spirit as part of me's decisions, yeah, the decisions did take a lot of time. They were very difficult, and they didn't work. So yeah, you just have to allow. That's another one of my big words, is allowing, not get out of the way. And really that's our ego getting out of the way, right? It's our ego. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ego, and ego work. Like I said, ego doesn't mean egotistical always. It means
No.
different things, right? And these are just my opinions, and these are things I've gotten from spirit over time. I'm no expert on it, but I do know that, like, when So here's the thing, right? What belief and faith, right? Like what you
Mhm.
just described is belief and faith, right? So,
Right.
you can have faith that something's going to work, and that was always hard for me. I'm not a faith guy. I'm not like I'll believe it's going to happen without any evidence. That's not really me, right? But things got so bad for me that my way just wasn't working. Like everything I did I was miserable, right? I was miserable. So when spirit would come in with these ideas, and again, they're there because you're like, I'm not doing that. I'm not. What do you what do you mean up and leave everything? Like, no way. Like, because I know my fear would not allow that. So that's one of the ways I know this is spirit led, because there's no way my ego would tell me to do this scary thing, right? That's
Yeah.
one way I know.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way. My ego was like, no, that's too scary. Okay. So when those things come in, right, and they suggest those things, and I was so miserable that I was willing to do it. Okay. I don't say I had faith. I didn't have faith it was going to work. I did not. I never had faith, but it worked, and it worked well, and I felt good. I got to the other side of it, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so good. I did it, and I feel good, right? And I feel the same way about courage. Like they always would tell
Mm.
me to have courage. I hated that word. I can't just drum up courage. I can't be courageous. That's not me. I'm scared to death. The truth is I'm scared of everything. I'm driven by 1,000 forms of fear. Like that is true for me. Okay. So I just got more afraid that it wasn't good, that of what I was doing than I was of what was coming. That's all. I didn't change anything else. I didn't have courage, right? But what I did do is realize that I was driven by fear. And when I did this one thing, right, in my life that I was afraid of, I did this thing and I got on the other side of it and I felt so much better. I just felt so much better that I knew if I walked through that fear, right, I would feel better. So what I say now is I grew spiritually, right? I walked through fear and I grew spiritually. And when I got to the other side of that, now I have belief. I believe if I walk through fear, if I figure out what spirit wants me to do, and I walk through that fear that I have, I now believe that I will feel better. I now believe it's the right thing because it worked once, right? That's the difference. Belief is
Yes.
having some proof, right?
Yeah.
Faith is doing it without any proof. And I'm not a good faith guy. Like, so like I tell people, try it. What do you have to lose? It's not going so well for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
how are you feeling? Are you feeling 100%? Because I can tell you're not, right? So tell me, what do you have to lose if you try this? And a lot of times people are just so afraid that they can't really see past that. But if I can get them just to get a little bit of belief, because that's the key, right? Belief.
Belief. Yeah. And once you do feel that, once you do look your fear in the eye and say, hey, obviously what I've been doing is not working. So I'm going to try this, even though it's, scaring the bejesus out of me. Then you realize that, hey, it's not that bad. And so, you know, one of my mentors always has said, when fear shows up, it's God telling us to correct. It's like a God correction. There's a reason that fear is showing up, whether you consciously are aware of it or are you subconsciously aware that there's a reason for it. So pay attention to it. We're not taught that. We're taught to run away from fear. We're taught to not have fear in our life, which is really silly because, there's a lot of things to be afraid of. So I just think that it's so important, the work that you're doing to help people see that, really fear is not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, my that's like my favorite topic is fear. Like I tell people, and here's what I'm doing. So again, I'm a medium, and I've been doing this work for a while, and I came across this, like I'm supposed to do this show, right? So I got told to do this show by spirit. Like I saw this ad to do this TV show, and I'm like, I'm supposed to do that. Okay, now I know my fear is not going to encourage me to do that. There's no way I have to, and right. So I know, oh man, this has got to be something I'm supposed to do. So I get chills. That's my indication. Like I get strong chills when I see this poster of this thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do this, right? And this is from belief, right? This is because I know if I get chills, that's spirit telling me yes, okay? And that's just from years of practicing this. But I know I'm supposed to do this, so I set out to do this, and I thought I'm going to showcase my skills and da 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 da. The first gallery reading that I do to record, what happens? I stop in the middle of a reading. I start telling people that I'm afraid. I start telling them where the fear's creeping in. I start teaching them how I'm getting my information, what's coming through, when it's coming through, what it looks like, what it feels like, and how they can do it. Right off the bat. And I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that was in me, but that's what happens when you when you go with what spirit wants you to do. They help you, right? They help you. So the whole thing ended up being about teaching people and showing them, like, and it starts out like this, because here's the most important thing I can tell you. Like I told you, I'm crippled by fear, right? It's true. Like fear cripples me all the time. When I go to get in front of a room full of people to start reading them, the fear creeps in every time. Like I got 100 people in the room, they're all staring at me. I've got to start getting the information. There's root fears here, right? The root fear is I'm going to stand there, I'm going to be wrong. They're all looking at me. They're all going to see that I'm wrong. They're going to think I'm a fraud. I'm going to know I'm a fraud, right? Like that's the root fear we all have. We all have these fears, right? And so that's the root fear. So what happened was I got up there and I just told everybody that right out of the gate. I'm like, look, here's the root fear. Here's what happens when I get up here. This is like what I feel right now. And all of a sudden what it did was it freed me. I wasn't afraid anymore because I'm not pretending, right? I'm not lying to anybody. I'm not hiding this. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm something that I'm not. It opened me up to be vulnerable. And not only that, but they're all with me now. Everybody in that room is with me when I'm doing this reading. And so when the lady says no, I go, see, everybody feel that? Like, see how I just see what happened? Like she said no, and I freaked out. So this is where that fear creeps in, and I could walk through, and it just made it so amazing. And that's my lesson in life. Like, be honest about your fear. Tell people, and be vulnerable, because that's the true strength, right? Like that's the true strength.
Well, and you also allow other people to be vulnerable. When you're vulnerable and when you're telling people that you're fearful of what you're about to do or that you're doing right now, that just, other people go, oh, wow, this is a human.
Yeah, and it makes them realize I'm not some magic spiritual being up here, because that's the first thing I tell them. I'm like, look, I'm a construction worker. So, if you think this is something you can't do, I work construction all week. Like I pest with the guys. I'm not some spiritual guru who meditates 10 times a day at all. Like I'm awful at meditation. So like, if you think there's something you can't do, you're wrong. And here's why. And I kind of walk them through it. So it's super, super important for me to show people that this is something you guys can do. And look, here's what I'm doing. Here's why. Look, you think you're afraid to get up here? So am I, and they understand. And it really just brings them in.
And I love that, because that really shows your human side. And that if anybody can do it, if you can do it, anybody can do it. So tell us a little bit about any of your clients that have worked with you, some of their ahas, or what, if we're going to put how to connect with you in the chat. And we want people to be able to connect with you, obviously. So tell us about some results that some of your clients have received.
Yeah, so I had a really good circle last night. So just so you kind of understand my process, I don't sell people on weeks of training and all that stuff. I don't believe in all that. I have a one-time session that people come and they kind of feel I work with them on a one-on-one, and I give them all the ways I get ego out of the way and connect them to their guides. And so anyway, there's this process that I bring in. I have them practice, and I have them feel the connection and have them feel not being connected. And I really just kind of, again, I've simplified it. I want to make it simple. I don't like the whole oh, you got to be in a perfect. I make it simple so you can do it anywhere, right? So that's the idea. So I have this training program, kind of 2-hour session that I do first, but then I have these circles that I do. So circles are a weekly thing that we do where people can show up and strangers come to get readings, and my students come to practice, because that's where the real magic happens, right? That's where the magic happens. It's when you get in front of a stranger. And here's the part people don't understand, and I kind of mentioned a little bit. If you know somebody, it's hard for you to not get your stuff out of the way and give them a message. But how many people who are new at this are going to go get in front of a stranger and try to get messages for them and try to see what it is? That's the big gap. That's what people don't understand who are trying to develop this. They're trying it with their loved ones. They're trying it with their kids. They're trying it with themselves. And what happens is they mix it with their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own fears. And then by the time they give that message, it's not accurate, right? It's just not accurate. And then they say, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. So if I can take somebody and get them in front of complete strangers, right, and have them practice this, they're always amazed at how much better, how this works. So I have a lady who, this is a cool story, and I don't take credit for this, but this is a really important story. She's a lady who comes to my circle a lot, and she was working a fair for like a kids event, so like a school event. And as a joke, they dressed her up as Madame Zoltan, the box person who gives the fortunes. And she was sitting there giving pretend readings, right? And just getting in that mode of pretend readings, right? She started giving real messages the whole day. Everybody was blown away because she thought she was pretending. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But all her messages were like so accurate, right? So accurate, so accurate. And so what does that tell you? It tells you like that fear of doing it is so big. But if I can get you in front of complete strangers, even if you think you're pretending, then that's amazing, right? I had a class of 20 people for my development class. I do a class sometimes, and I had about 4 people in there that had never thought they were spiritual, didn't think they could get a message, couldn't do anything. And at the end of the class, I had everybody pair up with random people and give messages, and we all watched, right? And every one of those people in that class was able to get something very good, very intense for those people. And they had no idea. They had no idea that they could do that. And so it just proved to me that anybody can do this, whether you believe it or not, with a simple approach and kind of realizing, that you're the one who's in the way of this, nobody else. There's no spirit doesn't need to get louder so that you can understand them better. That's not the case. You just got to get your fears, your wants, and your ideas out of the way so that you can get the message, right? It's you. You're the block, right? You're the block. So I do have this circle, and
I
like
love
last
that.
night was,
I love the way. Yeah.
last night was amazing circle, and I have like 3 students in there that just blew me away. Like they were getting messages that like I got stuck on a lady last night. I couldn't get anything for her. I'm like, this is not feeling right. So I go to one of my students, and she's like, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. And then I go to another one, and she's like, this is this, this is this, this is this. And so it's like, it's amazing to me. That's my favorite part of the circle, is when I can get a random person in the room who doesn't really speak up the whole time. If she can speak up or he can speak up and give that person a message, to me, that's what it's all about. That's the magic for me.
I love that. And the fact that you get your ego out of the way. So you're open to, okay, well, something's not working here with this person, so I'm going to invite someone else to help. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I can't believe we're at the bottom of the hour already.
I told you. I warned you. I warned you. Yeah. So the last thing I'll add to that is I say, like, and this is important, and I say this at every gallery reading I do, every time I go, look, you've got to be willing to be wrong. You've got to be willing to be wrong. And this isn't just to do this work. This is in life. Okay. If you're not willing to be wrong, then you are making something fit. And if you are making something fit, it's the same thing as lying. Okay. And if you're lying to yourself, you're disconnected from all of it. That's just how it works. And so be willing to be wrong all the time, as much as you possibly can. Just say, I could be wrong. Even if you don't believe it, that's okay. Start saying these words, I could be wrong.
I love that. I love that, because then that is opening up to spirit. So that is, again, not trying to make it work because this is the way we thought it should work. So that's just letting spirit lead the where. And, one of the things I've been saying about my journey with the Healing Institute is that I really, truly believe I'm spirit led to have this organization, to have this online, virtual, worldwide platform for holistic practitioners, but also for people to come and engage with those holistic practitioners, because we want to give people hope. We want people to be able to be well. And we know when we are well, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, then we're in service. And that is what I truly believe we need in the world today. We really need to be in service. So thank you so much, Jared. I'm so delighted that you were able to hop on today. I've put in the chat how to connect with Jared, and I'm going to be putting this podcast on my YouTube channel, and then I will be sending it out on social media, and we will send out the connection, how to connect with Jared on that as well. So just a couple more things I just wanted to mention. that we do have this of expert holistic and health practitioners. Again, they're here to to help you in whatever way you need help and assistance. But we also have an ask. Please let people know about us. Please tell your communities, tell your families that the Healing Institute exists, and come to the Healing Institute and find a practitioner that you can work with, whether on whatever it is that you need. All the practitioners have complimentary sessions, so you can book a 30-minute session with them at no charge. And it's definitely for you to find out if you're a good fit with them. So yes, our motto is service with love, and we ask that you help us spread this word, that we are available for people at the Healing Institute. So again, thanks, Jared, for being my guest co-host today. I love this topic, and we are going to say goodbye for now, and we will see you next Friday on Heal the
Thank
World
you.
Show podcast.
Thank you.